All right, team, welcome. Today we're going to be talking about how to keep our camera equipment clean. Now, there's a lot of things that could go wrong when we're cleaning our camera equipment, so I want you guys to pay very close attention and to please follow my safety advice here. When it comes to the security of your camera, less cleaning is generally better. If in doubt, and especially for the internals of your camera, please take it to a camera store and talk to them first, all right? But here we go. This is how we keep our camera equipment clean. So we're going to start, first of all, with our lens, all right? Now, when we clean our lens, we have two different sides of our lenses to clean. The first part that we're going to clean is the front of our lens here. Now, when we're cleaning the front of our lens, the same rules also apply for cleaning our UV filters. A great thing about having a UV filter is that generally, if you have one strapped on, all of your dust is going to be caught on your UV filter. So the most important part of your lens to actually clean is going to be this piece of equipment here. Okay, so I am actually going to just clean my UV filter because I've had it on pretty much ever since I purchased this lens, and looking in there, my lens is not very dirty right now, so I don't want to clean it if I don't have to. But trust me, my UV filter could use a bit of a clean. So when we're getting started here, and this is with all of the glass components of your camera, there are a few steps that you can follow. The first piece of equipment that you might want, and the first piece that you will use, is essentially a puffer type piece. What does this do? Well, this is a really great way of getting off the big pieces of dust from the front of your lens, okay? And it's a really great place to start because we want to get away the big stuff first. Before we start rubbing or brushing any part of our lens, we want to make sure that all of the big scratchy stuff is off before we get started, okay? So step number one is to blow. Just remember though, guys, when you blow with your mouths, it's not always as clean as you think it's going to be, or blow with a puffer, okay? So highly suggest going with the puffer idea. Now, a lot of puffers come with this brush on the end. Some of them don't, but you can get the brush separately, okay? If you have a brush, it is another really great way to remove some of the really big pieces of dust off the front of your lens. Now, my lens is already looking a million times better just from those two processes. Clearly, I should have done this a while ago. But using your brush, use it delicately, okay? And be very gentle with these. The other thing is you want to keep these clean, so please don't leave these somewhere where they're going to get dusty. Dust is kind of scratchy. So make sure that you're also taking care of your cleaning equipment and putting it in a sealed bag inside your camera bag so that you have it with you all of the time. Okay, so keep your camera cleaning equipment clean because it will help to keep your camera clean. That was a lot of cleaning. All right, so that is step number one. Now, the next part of this step is actually what we do when, if that doesn't remove everything that we need to, we actually have the next section of cleaning here. Now, sometimes it's unavoidable we accidentally touch our lens. Our fingers are full of oily substances, and when we touch our lens, what actually happens is we transfer the oily substances from our hands onto our lens. Maybe it's not you, maybe it's a husband, maybe it's a child, maybe it's a wife, maybe it's an aunt or an uncle or anyone, okay? So it's not always your fault that you touch the lens, but sometimes when our lens gets touched, we get left with greasy fingerprints. Now, just wiping them away or blowing them away is not going to do it. So we need to move to the next level of cleaning here. Now, what you're looking for to get rid of greasy fingerprints is a lens cleaner, okay? It doesn't have to be a specific camera lens cleaner, okay? But you do want a lens cleaner. Please don't just go and grab some Windex out of your cupboard. The lens cleaner is going to be better, okay? So it's better formulated for making sure that the coatings on lenses don't degrade, all right? Now, when we use a lens cleaner, we want to be very sparing with this. Why? Because our lenses do have electrical elements in them. And if we drown our lens in fluid, that's not going to be good for it, okay? So when we use it, we just want to make sure we're putting a little bit on, okay? One spray is more than enough. All right, now to go with the spray, you need to have, and let me be very clear here, a clean microfiber cloth, okay? Please make sure your cloths are clean. Otherwise, you've picked up a whole bunch of contaminants that you are now using to scratch into your lens. All right, so make sure you have a clean microfiber cloth. All right, and what we're going to do is very, very gently just clean away the elements there. Okay, there we go. Ooh, look how clean it is. I have never seen my lens look so clean. It has been a while since I've cleaned my lenses. All right, perfect. So that's looking pretty damn fantastic, all right? Make sure you're getting rid of all of the moisture that you can, and then remember that if there's a little bit of moisture left on here, stop scrubbing, allow the air to dry it off for you. okay? Now, I want to be very clear about this. Your lens is never going to be completely contaminant free. There's always going to be a piece of fluff that lands on just when you take a photo. It's okay. For the vast majority of time, that's not going to show up on your images, all right? It's really big stuff we want to get rid of. So that's how we use our lens cleaner. Now, the next step in the process that you may have come across is this little guy here. It's called a lens pen, and it comes with two sides. So the first side is a brush. We've already seen what the brush can do. Very cool. But this second side is also super useful, and in some respects, it's actually an alternative to this step here. So it's got this really cool sort of felt tip almost, all right? Now this felt tip is really great for getting into the cracks. So if you notice the way that it's shaped, it's really good for getting into the edges of your lens in a way that your microfiber cloth is not, okay? So a really nice way to end this, or you could use this instead of this step, and it will likely get rid of your fingerprints as well. Not quite as reliably as using a lens spray, but pretty close, okay? And then we just want to come around in circling motions, all right, picking up all of the dust as we go. Now, team, I know it's incredibly addictive, but please do not play with your brushes, okay? Because again, every time you touch them with your hands, you are getting your greasy fingerprints in there. Not ideal. And as tempting as it is, try not to touch the top of your lens pen as well, okay? So that is how we clean the outside of our lens. Now that is generally how we clean every glass element in our camera, okay? But there are a few caveats to this. So the next thing that we really need to be careful of, obviously, let's put our lens cap back on again. If your lens cap is dirty, or your lens hood is dirty, these are also really good to keep clean, because remember, you pop your lens cap on the front of your lens here. Give it a wash, and then give it a lot of time to air dry so that it is completely dry before you put it back on your camera, okay? There's lots of crevices in here. Don't just assume wiping it off is going to dry it properly. Make sure it actually has time to dry properly before you put it back on, okay? Remember, a wet lens cap, it's going to seal in moisture into your lens, which is not a great idea. So make sure everything is properly dry. Okay, so now that my top of the lens is clean, now guys, remember you can also take off your UV filter. You can clean the same way the inside of your lens, or the actual lens, sorry, and you can clean the inside of your UV filter the same way too. But if you're not taking your UV filter off on a frequent basis, it shouldn't be dirty. There's a really good seal there, okay? Perfect. Now, the other glass element that we're talking about here is the one inside. Ooh, two pieces that I want to talk about here. All right, now, typically, I don't want to see this too often, all right? We don't want to take our lenses off and leave them off for too often, but here we go. The other part that does typically get dirty if you switch lenses, and I switch lenses a fair bit because I use prime lenses, it's one of the downsides, but that's okay, is the internal glasses here. Now, use the same thing, but in this case, skip the lens cleaner if you can, okay? Definitely go with a lens pen because you don't want to be introducing moisture into this part, all right? And I'm going to explain to you why in just a moment here. So, let me get rid of, that's not doing much, too big a pieces. Okay, here we go. It turns out I actually had a couple of splotches on mine, so it'll be nice to get rid of those. Okay, now if you are having a little bit of trouble getting rid of a particularly stubborn spot, just pop a touch of lens cleaner on your microfiber cloth. Please don't put it directly on this side, okay? And then you're good to go. There we go, now we're getting it. Okay, perfect. Now, in many respects, this is a more important side to keep clean than the outside, because if you look at the size of this, any spots on here actually end up magnified in your photo in comparison to the size of this. Okay, here we go. All right, so that's how we do that. Now, the next piece that's really important to keep clean, and this is often where some of your problems will come with if you're having issues with your lens, are these electronic connection points right here. Okay, now they also have the electronic connection points in here as well, but you've got to be very, very careful when you clean these, because again, you don't want to go spraying lens cleaning fluid into your lens, because we're going to get to that part, into your camera, sorry, because we're going to get to that part in just a minute here, all right? So what we want to do again is we want to grab a different microfiber cloth, or the same one. It's okay if you use the same one as what you were doing for your lens cleaning, but keep in mind that when you're finished with this, you're going to go and put it in the wash, okay? You do not want to be using these things more than one clean at a time, okay? Okay, so for this part, I'm going to put some lens cleaner directly on my microfiber cloth. Okay, and the part that I really want to get is these electrical contact points between my lens and my camera. Okay, and I'm just going to give him more of a wash here, or a bit of a wipe down. Okay, now if these guys get dirty, what happens is that your autofocus doesn't communicate particularly clearly, and neither does your aperture change. Okay, so those are all controlled by your camera, which means that there has to be an electrical impulse that comes to your lens to tell it what to do. All right, now when we're doing it here, I want you to be extra specially careful that you're not getting too far into your camera, because we're going to have a chat about that in a second. Okay, but you also have the electrical contacts inside your camera on the outside here. Just as important to keep these clean, okay? And if you are ever having issues with your camera not focusing properly, or not adjusting its aperture, or even just being slow, check your connection points for sure. The other thing that you might find is that your camera won't actually register the connection in the first place. That happens quite frequently on our Nikon D750 if our connection points are dirty. Now, as you guys can see, those get pretty filthy, right? So please don't be going and using this cloth for something else. Give it a wash. Finally, the last piece of our camera is actually the camera itself, okay? So, the simple and short answer is don't touch it, okay? Why? Because behind your mirror box there, and if you wanted to use your blower, if you've got some big pieces of dust, you can, okay? Do not use any liquid inside your camera. You will mess it up, you will destroy your sensor, and your camera will be ruined. There is no way to fix a bad sensor other than pulling it apart and starting afresh, okay? So I really, very severely do not want you to be going in and playing with your sensor. If you need your sensor cleaned, because you've cleaned everything else and there's still a big spot, it's probably on your sensor, okay? If you need your sensor cleaned, take it to a professional, all right? They will be able to do it in a controlled environment where there is no extra dust, and they know how to do it so that they do not ruin your system, okay? So do not get into the inside of your camera. Stick your cleaning efforts to the outside where you know that you can control the results. All right, the other things that you can do is obviously use your lens cleaner on your screen, on your viewfinder. Again, be very gentle with these things. It's an electronic piece of equipment, so if you want to, spray it on a cloth and then wipe it down. Okay, and just as a final reminder, team, please make sure that you're washing your cloths frequently in between. And you want to be making sure you're not using very harsh detergent and you're rinsing them a lot, because often harsh detergents, especially powdered detergents, can actually leave residue in your lens cloths, which will actually scratch your lenses as well. So a liquid detergent is better. Use it sparingly and make sure you rinse your cloths very, very well. Perfect. All right, team. That is how we're going to clean our equipment. Go out there, get yours all cleaned up, and hopefully you notice the difference in your photos. Talk to you soon.